Speaking of the fuller picture, President Obama is in Havana right now, and this is historical. It's historical for many reasons, because he's the first president since the 1920s to visit Cuba. It's historical because, obviously, Cuba and the United States have been in a state of tremendous tension and Cold War, going back to the, even before the Cuban Missile Crisis, going back to the Bay of Pigs in the early 60s. We've tried to kill Castro many times. And we've been even involved in proxy conflicts with Cuba across Latin America and even into Africa in some respects. So this is a revolutionary moment. Also, it's an opportunity for Obama to finally hang out publicly with some of his socialist brethren. I hope they don't serve him pork, though, because he'll get pissed off. I'm just kidding. Sometimes I just have to articulate the fantasy world of our right-wing friends. But this is President Obama arriving yesterday in Havana, speaking to members of the U.S. Embassy staff there about the purpose of this trip and what's happening. Let's take a listen.
Well, as our ambassador or chief of mission has stated, it's been nearly 90 years since a U.S. president stepped foot in Cuba. It is wonderful to be here. Back in 1928, President Coolidge came on a battleship. It took him 3 days to get here. It only took me 3 hours. For the first time ever, Air Force One has landed in Cuba, and this is our very first stop. So this is a historic visit, and it's a historic opportunity to engage directly with the Cuban people and to forge new agreements and commercial deals, to build new ties between our two peoples, and for me to lay out my vision for a future that's brighter than our past. Michelle and I wanted to start with all of you because nothing symbolizes better the new relationship between the United States and the Cuban people.
So, look, in the historical context, President Obama's had a mixed foreign policy record. I think he will get more credit as he emerges, and he'll get more criticism of things like the drone program as history goes on. But between the Iran deal and opening of Cuba, these significant regional and global transforming accomplishments that just have to do with a basic reset of U.S. foreign policy dogmas are not only incredibly important in and of themselves, they reflected the reason why young people like me supported President Obama to begin with. Like when he said, I will negotiate with, the head of Venezuela, the head of Iran, and Secretary Clinton at that time said, that he didn't understand foreign policy and all the rest. That basic difference in orientation and approach to the world was what inspired a lot of people, and in his first term was frankly less evident. And it's manifested with very specifically Iran and Cuba. And these two accomplishments will be to his everlasting credit. Obviously, there's still a lot of human rights problems in Cuba. There's also accomplishments of the Cuban system that I hope don't get destroyed in the process of liberalization. But from the perspective of President Obama's historical legacy, this is tremendously significant, and it's sort of like just getting rid of some old cobwebs in U.S. foreign policy that have been clogging up the system.
It's very pleasing to watch the older conservatives, and generally the younger ones don't probably care as much, that still want to retain this Cold War policy. Right. It's just ludicrous. The Cold War ended 20 years ago. Well, not quite, but it's crazy. Yeah,
I mean it's just a reflex, and frankly, if we can, look, you can't compare China and Cuba. China's China's the second global superpower. You have to do business with them, period. But even on the level of we can't to listen to people say we can't do business with Cuba and have a bilateral relationship with them because of their human rights violations are the same people who have China's human rights violations make Cuba look like Williamsburg. It's ridiculous. Get real.
Hi, I'm Sam Seder, and this is an Ann Coulter doll.
You should not be immigrating here. Yeah. Stay in your country and hate us.
For smart progressive talk and a little bit of this and even a little bit of that.
Mission accomplished.
Subscribe to our podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and like us on Facebook to get some of our best video clips.